right.
Okay, we'll call to order the Design Review Subcommittee meeting of Wednesday, May 11th. We have some minutes to approve. No, we don't. I have no minutes to approve. There are no architecture reviews. We have one item on new business, 2022-2023 Park Dining Exception Requests. Jonathan's going to do it, and it's Avila's restaurant.
Okay, you guys got started on that last?
We did, and we actually, at the end of our meeting Wednesday, we walked up there and kind of walked those there, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and the lack of minutes is my fault. Those are done now, but we'll be on your at your next meeting. So through our first discussion of Avila's, the consensus was a preference to have them put a deck on Ola Vista, just to reduce the interaction with the trolley at that location. And with outdoor dining coming back, we all agreed the trolley is pretty key to that program, and key piece of our justification of how that's happening. So this is a significant stop. We want that stop to be returned to its normal function. So the committee was not opposed to them having something on Del Mar, but the remaining space would be limited, and we felt that the easiest option would be for them to go to Ola Vista. The property owner was out of town and wasn't able to participate at that meeting. I did meet with them after the fact to relay that news. They had concern about the slope of Ola Vista and some challenges about the path of travel from their kitchen to serving in that area. So they did want to revisit and look at a smaller area on Del Mar. Hence our walk up the hill to look at that space. And I did take some measurements, and so we'll shift to looking at the screen quick. So this is what they had in place last year, just as a quick refresher there. And the trolley was stopping down block and just blocking traffic while people got on. So we don't want to have that context anymore. Some quick measurements. We have 66 feet in a straight line from the edge of our loading zone, or actually it's from the edge of the red curb to the crosswalk location. The length of the trolleys are 30 feet. And I indicated here a preferred loading area.
Wait, can you go back to that for a second?
Yeah.
So the preferred loading area starts how far down from the intersection?
It is about 30 feet from the intersection, but the trolley the preferred situation would not be where the bumper is at the crosswalk. It would be further up for a couple of reasons. One, engineering did not want to have people turning right come immediately into the vehicle. And then two, you see these electric boxes here.
Mm-hmm.
We only have 2.5 feet of space here between the curb and the doors open out on the trolley. So this is one of those, in visiting in person, it became clear that logically it makes sense for them to pull forward enough to where the doors would open at this location beyond those electrical boxes.
Thanks.
So a couple of photos of the site. So this is from beyond their space, looking back from the ADA location. The distance from wall to curb is 14 feet. Distance from curb to the outer edge of this pad is 8 feet. And then there's an additional 40 inches from pad to the outer edge of the blue markings for the ADA. You can see it here as well. So that's 40 inches to give a quick sense of scale. Oh, and actually, let's go back. I had highlighted in red that loading area would be like right here at the edge of this photo. So the sense of loading would be from this bench through to this trash can location would be essentially kind of trolley reserved space.
We get a lot of people getting on at that spot.
We get a lot of people getting off at that spot.
Oh.
It's a more common offloading than onboarding.
So you don't necessarily have people queuing up right between the tree and the bench.
Not as much. We get more people that will wait opposite. And it's catty corner, so not Cotton's, but the surf shop
Hobie.
because that's more as the trolley is going down and then returning to the outlets, since the majority of people who park and ride are parking in the outlets.
Okay.
So a couple of images here. This is when they pulled up. You can see this sign here that's just beyond the electrical box. So I talked to the driver, and initially they were, they backed to align with this, and I said that's not going to make sense. Pull forward, and let's get beyond this sign, which would be an easy marker for the drivers as well, of a standard, stopping location. So this gives just a quick context of, where they would be potentially stopping for the rear, and then same vehicle hasn't moved, but just I moved, took a photo from the opposite side. And Bart, if you remember from visiting, there's a couple of these lines in the concrete,
Mhm.
kind of gives us a sense of scale. And when we had measured, we were wondering if even this line could be the outer edge of the deck. It's a little tight with how far, where the trolley's
Yeah, the
pulling up.
trolley's got a short 30 inches over that onto the street
Yeah.
because of its width, so.
So
Okay.
we can come back to these images, but I grabbed tenant improvement plans from 2000, which I didn't know when this project was approved, so learning something every day. 2000, and we have here just those different dimensions. So the curve has a 29-foot segment, and then 89 feet from the end of that bend to the end of the building. And the end of the building, which is it's more than a vilas, the end of the building goes 3 parking spaces in, or 2 plus the loading area. 14 feet, as I mentioned, from curb to wall at this wider segment. We have an 8-foot dimension from curb to where the posts are. We mentioned this last time too, Steve. One interesting thing at this location is that everywhere else has cantilevered roof elements, but this one is the only one that has support posts in the public right of way. So 8 feet, and then from post to wall is going to be the 6 feet. And this is just a sample drawn in line to, not to scale, but to delineate the concrete pad portion that we had seen before. Again, as I mentioned, 8 feet for that element, and then 40 inches to the edge. So this is not confirmed, but for purpose of discussion. Again, the trolley dimension, this is not to scale, but close. The 30-foot arrow here showing the loading zone, and again, show with the front of the trolley beyond, of course, where that door loading zone is. And you can see from the image that the front of the trolley came to about where the bench was in that context. And so I think it makes sense to, if we do consider something here, to have it be angled on both sides, or especially angled on this side that faces the trolley to give that swing out sense of space. The length from the end of the red curbing to the edge of the bench is 25 feet. I'm not necessarily recommending that full 25 feet, but I do think that would be the maximum possible.
They want to get the maximum height. So.
I'm sure that they would like to. I did have a chance to talk briefly with Kyle today too, and he's not opposed to them having something in this area, but his request was that we also speak with Avila's to see, if they can, for instance, fit the same number of tables in a deck that has a lineal frontage of 18 feet versus 24 feet, then obviously let's make it as small as possible to accommodate that. So
the 25 is the long dimension there.
25 would be the absolute longest. I don't know that makes sense. That's just to give, again, this has been measured. So the edge, the end of the red corresponds to kind of where that blue striping hits the curb. So at this point to the edge of the bench that exists is 25 feet. And the trolley was ending here. There's that break in the concrete here. They would swing out. And I think at 25, I think it's workable, but it would be a tight swing. I'll leave it there. One other, and then turn it over to you all for discussion. I also had indicated this separately. So this area curb adjacent is 8 feet. There is a tree in the middle. but they would be able to put a couple of tables on the sidewalk and leave clear the area fronting the building. So that's
So there'd be the
5.5.
same sidewalk that's down the road.
correct. So
This-
5.5 feet
Okay.
So under the overhang.
under the overhang, and then just with a stipulation of no chairs, no tables, nothing against the building.
Okay.
So I'll leave it there for discussion, but I do want to give Zach also the opportunity to chime in.
So me and Kyle spoke kind of after you. So the 25 feet would be probably the maximum, no matter what, and that should also include a couple planters or some sort of traffic barricade in that 25 feet. And so, because otherwise, that just goes on the outside. And this being one of the only areas where cars technically could pull right up to a deck. Everybody else is pretty protected by other cars or an island or something. This being right next to the intersection, it's going to need the planter on both sides, the street side and on the, I'm going to call it the trolley side. And so that 25 feet is definitely the maximum. Like Kyle said, I think if it can go smaller and they can only fit 4 out there, don't build it the max. Build it 18, like you said, or something like that. Because that way, if there's any air in the trolley guy and he accidentally pulls too far forward, he's not trying to back up towards a crosswalk.
Yeah, it's a tight one.
Yeah.
But he has a little bit of additional width where if he comes in there, starts his wheel turn.
If he could plan, I mean, he'll start learning. They'll
Yeah.
learn to just kind of start their wheel turn as they're rolling forward. The
Now-
only other thing I didn't talk about, Jonathan, real quick, is
Yeah.
the exiting of the door. I don't know if something needs to move out there, if we need to move the trash can or something. It seemed really tight. I kind of just that kind of triggered in my head as you were talking through this. We need to be able to not have people squeeze through a little 2-foot opening. ADA
And
is.
do they have 2 doors on the trolley or
Yeah, I
just
was
one?
just kind of wondering, like.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's one that's up towards the front. So there's a trash can that's in this location. So there is, I'd say probably at least 4 feet of width here.
Because we were supposed to have a clear path away from a door like that. Because you do have large people and whatnot, and so
Sure.
it's not all. And ideally, they wouldn't be walking in over the tree route thing just to get in and off the bus.
Yeah, at this location they wouldn't be.
So if we
It
need
is
to, it
solid
might mean we
surface.
can pick up that trash and find another
Yep.
location for it. If we, it seems a little crowded, and I didn't bring that up before. I apologize, but it's something.
No worries. I think let's see.
It's
No.
a city trash enclosure, it's not a,
So yeah, that photo got me. See the trash and that just right there, and then I'm wondering what that distance is between the trash and the tree, because it doesn't seem like we got a full clear 4 feet, but
well, plus you have a sign there.
I know it's a pretty crowded little area to be the main. Hey, get off the door right here.
Yeah.
Was that an uplight that was?
Now, question for you. ADA. We didn't build any ADA ramps or anything at other stops. We come up to an intersection, stop at the intersection, there's one at the crosswalk. So if somebody needs a ramp, they can use a crosswalk, correct? To ramp up. It doesn't have to be right at the door that you get off the bus.
I'm assuming these trolleys are pulling up to the point where you're stepping off the trolley straight onto the top.
That's what I'm assuming.
Right.
So, and it was just coming down, do we need to stripe anything to the sidewalk area? Think about it. We don't have to solve
Just
it now.
that path once you get out.
Once you get out, if the bus leaves, you don't want to go out and around the new deck
Correct.
to that
Ramp.
ramp.
Yeah.
You'd want them to go back to the sidewalk. But cars coming around the corner might be crowding that because you're not necessarily going when the lights
Right.
are suited. So think about that a little bit.
That's what brought me to that thought of that trash can might not be in the ideal spot right now. Just in terms of somebody exiting that trolley. It's more of a bigger picture trolley for kind of all stops. It probably this just happens to be one of the more crowded stops with all those utility boxes, unfortunately, and Yeah, it's.
Yeah, it'd sure be nice to get underground utilities, but ain't happening now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's something to consider. So in terms of exiting on there, you definitely don't. We want people to exit right onto the top of the sidewalk, because otherwise you're in the street. You shouldn't be going up and down and in front of trolleys or behind trolleys and stuff like that.
So that bus is, or trolley is ADA accessible?
I don't think they are.
I am not familiar that they are. 'cause I
There
know
are
you have to take
steps. I don't
up.
think there's a lift on it. That's why I was wondering if there was two doors. Usually the back door will have a lift or something for people, but I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, they're.
Yeah, I don't think
There's not.
Looking at that
rear.
picture, it looks like there's a vertical post either in gutter or is that on the bus? The left.
This is the door.
That's the door
This is the
open.
door open.
Towards the front of the trolley.
Yeah, that's the door that I've almost gone in and out because you get on right next to the driver.
So that's all painted red, that curve all the way up?
It is, yes.
I think they could. I'm leaning to thinking they could create something there, whether it's the same angle on both sides, where that blue striping is on the
It probably is. Yep.
handicap stall.
Share.
It's kind of a weird configuration altogether.
It really is.
So it looks like there is a lift option at the rear of the trolley.
I looked up the.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Trolley. Yes, of
So
course.
it would just be if
That's the side
someone
of it.
is at a stop
Oh.
and requests that, then the driver
I
would have to operate
Yeah,
that.
That's a
that's
good
not gonna
question.
work
I've
at this
never
location.
really-
But I don't know if that's the one that we would
Well,
have.
that's not too bad if it's at
I've
the
never
back,
done one.
because it would be.
I would assume all of them are.
That'd be right about that electric box. Well, he'd stop short.
So it does bring up an interesting point of if there are two doors and one of them's ADA. It's something we didn't get into that much detail on the first DRSC.
Whose is this
for
here?
sure.
Okay.
Nice find.
Yeah, but they wouldn't even use that door unless there was a handicapped person.
Right, so he'd know it ahead of time.
Well, it seems to me, I mean, they have the benefit of being able, even though there's a tree there, that's a nice canopy.
Yeah.
They have the benefit of using that other 8 feet on the sidewalk. So, you know, it seems like you could do a sort of a big square.
Pretty close
Instead
to
of
it,
having
yeah.
those
Splayed ends.
two angles there, which, you know, I mean, they're nice. So maybe that's the trade-off. You know, you go 20 feet or something like that, but you get the whole. What is that? That ends up being over 15 feet.
And that's a lot, you
Yeah.
get a lot of seats in, it would be, what, 12 plus
Because of 12 where it's
40
35.
inches or whatever it is?
We got to keep the angle on the ADA landing zone side, so we shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, I was saying right at that edge of that, go straight back. You know.
It's on the first side or the right side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it pinches so tight, I don't know if they can gain a table at all by doing it.
I was kind of picturing it more for the path for the hostess and waiter and stuff, kind of angling to their front
Oh,
door.
okay, well,
That kind of might help them from a room standpoint, from a serving standpoint.
I
That was
wouldn't
something I
be
brought up.
opposed to either one.
We get outdoor dining and all that stuff, and from a building standpoint, they have to actually look at accessibility from the server. It's because you
Right.
can't have them having to serve from the sidewalk over a rail.
But
And
they said it's better in the front anyway, right? To serve.
They did, yeah. This side of the building as opposed to the street over here.
Yeah, and typically, if we did a layout, we'd probably have the serving come down the middle, so you could push some tables up against the railing. It's a little more efficient to use this table up against the railing
So
rather
the
than
tree
having.
is like right here,
Right.
right? Right.
Yes, yeah.
And then you got another little one to the right, and
So
signs.
this. Oh shoot.
They're right there, okay, so we have,
Yes, and they can have this whole.
yeah, in effect. Mhm.
And square footage wise, that probably ends up being.
Just about the same, not a whole lot different.
Plus, it's more usable space because it's a big square.
So it sounds like we're not too opposed to the square or trapezoid
No,
idea. in the
I'd
street.
accept either one.
The one hiccup being the potential of the ADA door, does it have a landing zone? Because if that person was technically needing the bus to pull forward even more, then all of a sudden that trapezoid, I'll call it, is
Although he
blocking
does
it.
have the option of, let's see, go back to the one where we're looking straight at the bus. Yeah, right there. He's about 40 inches. He could be out into the street and still be the same as the diagonal parking. So he could exit, if he had a handicap, onto the street, and the sidewalk ramp is right there.
Yeah, right at the corner. So that lift, does that drop? I assume that drops you on the curb from the sidewalk. You know, there looks like there's plenty of room before those two electricals.
I think they can make it work. I'm looking at the rear here, and if he was out a little bit, the ramp starts right at the crosswalk line. That should be the apron starting right there. So I think it could be made pretty clear that that would be compliant. Could be interpreted
If the
by
bus
anyone.
pulls away from the curb and knows
Yeah.
to pull out though. So if he doesn't know,
They're pretty good.
One of
I
the
mean,
patients-
the drivers.
Plus, you figure it out. You only do it one time, then you figure it out.
Yeah.
Because they're looping constantly. Yeah, I think it works.
I think that approach works, Jonathan.
Okay, so coming back to dimensions, 25 would have been right to the edge of the bench.
Mhm.
And what I'm curious is there's a preference to pull that back a little bit.
Well, I think the biggest one is that we have enough room for the trolley, which Zach has always talked about. And if that's, what'd you want, 8 feet then the 30 feet?
So this was giving us our room, gives the trolley the swinging out. So this was the absolute, max that they can
Okay,
get on that
very good.
trapezoid. So
Okay.
if we wanted to create any sort of buffer for, oops, the trolley guy pulled up a little too far, do we go down to 18 or do we go to 20? That's that.
Well, we have to leave
kind of that
room for the
decision
planters
point.
because you're showing them and they're encroaching beyond the,
Those are 30 inches, yep.
Yeah.
So if we dropped that dimension to 20, then, we,
or 22, whatever.
then you'd have the planters.
Because I think we do need to give some solid buffer just in case the trolley swings wide.
Well, even when the trolley's not there, it's just so open. So you're actually open to the traffic that somebody doesn't or, is not paying attention. You're in the middle of an intersection kind of. Most other areas you have an island to protect you. This is the one spot that you kind of don't have that.
So you're talking about being able to squeeze by between the edge of the patio and the bench and get onto the sidewalk as well? Because it looks like we've had that.
If anybody's using the street, they'd be using the crosswalk ramp with this layout. Otherwise, we'd need a full 4 feet in
Can you
front
go
of the
back to that
trolley.
diagram?
This,
Yeah. That doesn't show the bench.
yeah, this one does not show the bench.
But the bench is,
So yeah, coming back to Zach's point of view, I would agree. I think that removing the trash can makes sense here, because then we would have 4+ feet.
A little bit
here.
more room. I wonder what happens if, picture that gone, and there is an ADA guy. Does that deck, could we figure out an exact amount? And Jonathan, were you thinking of potentially looking at this, I heard, by going out in the field with some cones and the driver and stuff?
So that was one thing that I think could make sense as well. And unfortunately I'm not available this weekend, so I'd have to work with a staff to figure out who might be able to do that. But if we have a dimension that we're comfortable with, for instance, that maybe the baseline of 20, well, we could even mark out to 25 feet. Have cones at that location, and then give the trolley drivers also the opportunity to confirm, like, we're swinging clear of this, we don't have concerns with
Gotcha.
this, before we build, and then.
That would be good to hear, because I don't want to build and then hear all of a sudden, you know, what do you guys do?
Yeah.
We can't pull forward for ADA. You know,
Yeah.
you don't want to have this aspect of it. So
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm not available this weekend either.
Okay, well, that could.
I am.
Well, that could be.
All right, you want to meet out there? We can figure this thing out.
We do have some maintenance staff that works, like, alternates and actually has some weekend days. So my main interest would be Saturday morning, just like first thing, and I can alert the drivers to pay attention to this and get their feedback. Just have them reply in that way, and then, you know, as of Monday, we could assess that feedback and then confirm or alter, you know, that edge condition.
Tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good.
Okay. I just pulled up public transportation exiting. So they would prefer curb-to-curb bus service, in which assistance is provided to the customer to enter and exit the vehicle at the curb.
So that means your lift lands on the top of curb. I'm
And
picturing
it sticks
that
out a
being
way.
ideal. It probably comes down and can land on the curb, or it can land
Yeah,
all the way to the
it's a
ground.
flat.
So it's
I'm
got that
guessing.
ability. It's
Yeah, and how far out that thing comes out, does it show?
It doesn't have a
It
diagram.
would need to be the size of the wheelchair, which is usually like this. It's like 3-4 feet wide, but I don't know how much.
yeah. So for smaller items, it's usually the feds and states a little different on
Yeah.
dimensions. I think one's 36 inches.
Mm-hmm.
So we usually go off. At the sidewalk, you have to do 4, but I think they'll allow restrictions down to 36 for that same reason. The wheelchairs is down to 30 with a little bit of buffer.
You can always make that part of your.
I'm just a little worried that
Okay.
those utility cabinets is kind of worrying me with
Yeah.
the ADA. I didn't really. Again, these things.
What? You see where we've got the 2 utility cabinets. And we've got room between the tree and that utility cabinet. Is that where the trash can is?
Let's check the photo. I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah. It might be prudent to relocate that just to be safe. Just to show we took the effort.
Yeah.
The trash can.
Trash can seems like an automatic. Funny thing is, we like them near the intersections. So then the only other place would be either closer to here, which you can't put it by the button, or now in the other area where they want to put tables.
The trash can?
Yeah.
I pull it around the corner.
To the other side of the corner?
Yeah.
That's a pretty narrow sidewalk, but. And then it's kind of right by their door.
Believe
But
that we do have to pull
it's
out.
not a requirement, it's just a preference that we have one there.
Sure.
Um,
A lot of people hang out on that corner
Yeah,
on the weekends, so it's going to get crowded.
luckily they aren't exactly takeout food stores, so.
So you could put one, we could move it in between those 2 planters.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
So that helps us with a little bit larger of an area and gives the bus. So if we have some instructions for the drivers, you know, set up the cones. Jonathan, that's easy, I think, for our maintenance guys. Set up the cones at 25 feet, and then tell the drivers, please pretend this is a wall. Does this work for you for normal drop-offs, and also think about ADA in terms of, is there a landing zone for them to? Because if they say, hey, give me 2 more feet and I can get an ADA guy off, then we should be asking for the 2 more feet.
Yeah.
so the trolley's only running on the weekend right now?
Yes, it starts full-time Memorial Day weekend. I would say, I mean, my other thing on that, Zach, again, it's not a very common situation, but when it does occur, with us nudging this even this way a little bit more, I do think that they would have room to roll forward another like 4 feet,
That's what I'm kind of thinking.
offload, and then they can just back up and pull out.
I don't know, they have backup cameras?
I don't know.
I mean, it's always dangerous because people get out of the sidewalk and kind of cut corners, take the shortest route.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of a fan of the actual angle on the trapezoid rather than square up, just so he doesn't get that option to pull forward and then pull back. But if I was thinking just that 30 feet plus whatever to swing forward, that 25 is kind of there. You had some photos from a different angle that you sent me in the email that I kind of agreed. I didn't even know you and Kyle had spoke on this. I was kind of on the same, in between those two expansion joints. I was always picturing.
It sure looks like that trash can's right around the front entrance.
Right. That's
From the
the
trolley.
photo why I'm starting to think all this too. So you have two expansion joints here. I pictured the cone being kind of in the middle here and then angling back, which is exactly what you're drawing.
Yeah.
And so we kind of came up with the same thing. If that's where the trolley's fine, this angle gives him some room and probably even enough room to pull forward 3 feet, 4 feet, hopefully enough to get the ADA out.
Okay.
If for some reason we hear back after this weekend that, hey, no, we would like to pull forward not 3 feet but 5, then maybe that kind of helps answer a question of where this is. It 25 or is it 23 or what is it?
Yeah.
So there's a chance I'm around this weekend.
I guess it wouldn't have to happen Saturday, so we'll figure it out. We'll make sure that someone.
Oh, I may get a chance to at least get down there and photo the guy stopped there from Avila's restaurant, looking out back at the trolley and see where the doors really are. But I think it can be resolved with this approach.
Yeah, I agree.
It'll be one of the nicer spots, actually.
Yeah, because it's got that depth. And plus, it's kind of a benefit to have the canopy tree over here.
The natural.
Mm-hmm.
One other probably potential condition in this area would be I might limit them on umbrellas on the deck, just given how close the interaction is with the trolley at this spot. We would still have the planters in between, but I'd want to take a look at whether it makes sense to.
Yeah, put the umbrella over on the other side.
Yeah.
It's just
Let's see,
no
he's-
overhangs, but for sure no overhangs, but at the same time maybe you limit it, period, because when you give them one and say no overhangs, it usually means I'm out there trying to be the overhang police now.
Yeah. What more do you need from us then, Jonathan? I think it can work, square or angled. I'm not gonna, the engineers should make the call on the clearances.
Yeah.
I think we've considered the ADA, and that's the whole point. We tried to comply. I think we probably do then.
Okay.
You get a thumbs up from us.
Sounds
Now,
good.
how much of the blue striping do we have to leave next to that ADA? I mean, that's a weird ADA
It's
space.
supposed to be, a stall is 9 feet wide, the landing is supposed to be 8. That looks like it's pretty
No,
good.
I'm looking at that one,
Striped area.
So it's supposed to be 8 feet wide.
8 feet, okay.
Okay. We can validate in the field, make sure that we.
Yeah, it looks like it widens up as it gets closer to the side.
Well, I did notice that at some point we must have restriped because initially it was not shown overlapping the curb, and now all of this overlaps the curb.
Oh, yeah.
So at some point there was.
So
I
is
imagine
that like a zero curb there, or is there a ramp?
there's a
There's a
ramp.
ramp.
It ramps,
right there.
and then on the right-hand side, it goes from 0 to 6 inches. So there's technically a step on, you go up this, and you actually have to turn.
Yeah.
So if you go click that way and go back in time a click or two, you can actually
Because
see.
there's gonna be a landing at the end of that ramp.
And then go back in time, maybe just a click or two, yeah.
Okay.
There you go. So you can, yeah, it is so crowded around the trash. So maybe, I'm surprised we haven't had issues with that exiting already anyway. So that ramp over there has a 0 to 6 inch high on the, I'll call it the right side of it.
Mhm.
So you come up and then you turn to the left as you were coming up it. So their table really should give any patio tables and stuff on that side should really be, not right up to the ramp if we can, give a little bit of buffer.
Mm-hmm.
So that is actually
Yeah.
a curb right there.
Okay, so it's ramped both directions.
Yeah.
So so this,
So they don't really
they
need,
can get pretty
So it
close to
doesn't-
this
yeah,
corner.
I thought it came
yeah, they're
from
rail,
this, but it
if they want to
They
use a
can get
rail.
pretty close to it, but I would rather have them off just a hair because technically.
About where the blue line comes in?
Yeah, I think the red curving
So
is a
the red,
great.
yeah, something where it's an 18-inch
Delineation.
offset of that little area. Because anytime you give them, it's just more stuff out there.
Okay.
So I have one last thing to show you, and then I actually need to go because there's a fire adjacent to my residence up in Aliso. So,
Oh, there is?
yeah,
Oh, I just came from there. Where-
Wood Canyon.
Oh,
So I'm gonna run home and maybe
'cause I smelled the smoke when I got
Evacuate.
San Juan.
the dogs.
So Pendleton this morning or
Hopefully it's
somewhere.
not gonna hit you.
Yeah. Okay, so this is another application that we had, and there's a minor difference here. So there's a hatch spot here where there's not room for an additional angle in parking. And so my initial response to them was I am not concerned with this, but that I would review with this group basically this is the same context of allowing some overlap in this hatched spot.
That's
And
not bicycle parking?
It's not bicycle parking, no.
Is there,
It's a driveway
They put-
to that rear parking garage.
But also, yeah, on that, this is no longer a residence. So the business rents out the residence and uses that for office and storage. So there's not any separate
Okay.
residential vehicles that are, and
that's
they
a
don't use
legitimate
that.
call?
And part two of that is we do have a 20-minute spot was designated as this second one. I did get numerous complaints about the post office. I did not get any complaints about this one last year, but I did want to flag that for you and see if you felt like we should relocate that 20-minute stop sign or if we should just let it go as is and relocate if we receive complaints.
Well, you're not gonna be able to park there, right?
Correct. Up by the post office, the complaint was I want to have easy in and out access, and people park there long term. I'm not sure what initiated the 20-minute.
kidding, people exceeded the 20 minutes.
Well, there's a couple of, what is it, ice cream shop and a few things that are kind of quick
Could
in and
be,
out spots.
Well, and that may be it. This actually used to be an ice cream
Yeah.
shop, so I wonder if that was the.
It may have been so
genesis
people could
of
just
that.
stop and have a place to go in.
So we can paint the curb green where this SUV is, if you think necessary. Up to you.
Well, we're losing that space anyway, right?
What's in that space now?
So there's a standard stall, 20-minute stall, and is that what you were?
So the 20 minutes.
No,
plus
what's the
is
tenant, or is it vacant right now?
Oh, the adjacent tenant is a retail.
Okay.
Oh, a real estate actually, and no, that is still the same. It is still real estate, and then jewelry, and retail's to the right.
Yeah, I don't think we really need the.
I'd probably wait, and if somebody complained,
Then make
give it back
next
to them.
time. Okay. Okay, that was the only other non-standard request that I had. The others are circulating.
How many have you
but
got
are
now?
Standard. So Cellar is approved. They'll start soon. Beach Fire is approved. They'll start soon. They're going to start after that ADA spot and do the next
Okay,
three.
good.
I have an incomplete application from SC Wine, San Clemente Wine, and they in the past have helped their neighbor, Monk and Thai, to get their paperwork together. So I think that both of those will still come in. And then I did receive one for La Galette down by the Pier Bowl.
Yes, I'm sure you did.
And Catarina's.
Yeah.
So those ones will be cutting back the size of their space. And we're getting the delivery of the first planters, which is for Pierside, since they're the first one to do it, that first delivery is coming tomorrow, so this weekend you should be able to see what those will look like as well. And they're responsible for the plants, so the planters will be delivered, and then they're going to be out hunting down appropriate plants.
Excellent.
So
Okay.
not as many on the north end, it sounds like.
Not as many, yeah. So I think we'll land right at about 10 that are in the public area as opposed to 15, 16 that we had last time.
Cool.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Next one, well, this was new business, old business, written communications, none. We have a motion for adjournment
I move that we adjourn until,
till May 25th at 3 p.m.
so we're going to 3 p.m. for sure next time.
Yes. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I second it. Vote.
Thank you.
Aye and aye.
Perfect.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.